Today is a beautiful day to unravel the darkest secrets hiding behind the glamorous doors of Los Angeles elite fashion dynasties. Grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let us explore a storyline that is about to change the landscape of our beloved show forever. The sprawling, sun-drenched beaches of Los Angeles have always been a place of romance, heartbreak, and hidden secrets, but the beach house currently occupied by Will Spencer is about to become ground zero for the most devastating revelation in the history of the Logan, Spencer, and Forrester families. Katie Logan Spencer, driven by a fierce, uncompromising maternal instinct, recently embarked on a covert mission to protect her son. Following the catastrophic implosion of Will's relationship with Electra Forrester, a breakup triggered by a violent altercation involving RJ and Eric Forrester, Will has been spiraling into a dark, vulnerable depression. Waiting in the wings to capitalize on this vulnerability is Melissa Dillon, a woman Katie heavily suspects of being a manipulative gold digger, a dangerous Luna Nozawa 2.0. Determined to unearth the dark truths of Dillon's past, Katie took it upon herself to thoroughly investigate the beach house, searching for any shred of evidence that could expose Dillon's ulterior motives and save her son from another disastrous, toxic entanglement. As Katie meticulously combed through the beach house, her sharp eyes scanning every corner for misplaced documents, hidden burner phones, or any clues linking Dillon to a sinister agenda, the atmosphere was heavy with the ghosts of Will and Electra's shattered romance. The remnants of their explosive final confrontation were still palpable in the air. Katie remembered the horrifying reports of that night, the shouting, the physical brawl, Will accidentally striking Eric Forrester, and Electra's ultimate, furious departure. Katie's heart ached for her son, knowing that his violent outburst had cost him the woman he deeply loved. However, as she knelt to inspect the space beneath the living room sofa, a place where secrets often fall and are forgotten, her fingers brushed against cold, intricately carved metal. Pulling the object into the light, Katie expected to find a forgotten trinket belonging to Melissa Dillon. Instead, the breath was violently knocked from her lungs, and the world around her seemed to grind to a horrifying, absolute halt. Resting in the palm of Katie's trembling hand was a necklace. It was not just any piece of jewelry. It was a bespoke, antique pendant, uniquely crafted with delicate filigree and a very specific hidden engraving. Katie recognized it instantly, and the recognition sent a shockwave of visceral agony straight to her fragile heart. This was the exact necklace that Electra Forrester had furiously ripped from her neck and thrown at Will during their relationship-ending fight. But to Katie, it was so much more than a discarded symbol of young, broken love. It was a ghost from a past she had spent decades trying to bury. This necklace was the singular, irreplaceable keepsake she had left with her newborn daughter, the infant girl she was tragically told had died shortly after taking her first breath all those years ago. The memories came flooding back with the force of a tidal wave, drowning Katie in a sea of unresolved grief and long-suppressed trauma. She was instantly transported back to that sterile, freezing hospital room. She remembered the agonizing pain of childbirth, the brief, beautiful sound of a baby's cry, and then the suffocating silence that followed. She remembered the somber faces of the medical staff, the devastating words that her precious daughter had not survived, and the hollow, soul-crushing emptiness that had consumed her. In her darkest hour of mourning, Katie had placed this very necklace, a family heirloom she had intended to pass down through generations, into the tiny, lifeless hands of her baby, a final, desperate act of a mother's eternal love. She had never expected to see it again, let alone find it discarded on the floor of her son's beach house, previously worn by the woman her son deeply loved. Katie's mind raced, desperately trying to construct a logical explanation for an impossible situation. How could Electra Forrester, the proud, beautiful granddaughter of the Forrester dynasty, be in possession of a necklace that was supposedly buried with Katie's deceased infant? The implications were too terrifying, too monumental to comprehend. Could it be a mere coincidence? A replica? Katie's maternal intuition, a primal force that had guided her through her darkest days, screamed that this was no coincidence. The intricate details, the specific weight of the metal, the undeniable aura of the piece, it was her necklace. And if the necklace had survived, if it had somehow found its way around Elektra's neck, then the horrifying, miraculous truth was staring Katie right in the face. Her daughter had not died in that hospital room. Her daughter was alive. Her daughter was Elektra Forrester. The transition from profound, paralyzing grief to a fierce, burning suspicion happened in a fraction of a second. Katie Logan Spencer is not a woman who allows herself to be blinded by emotion when the truth is on the line. She knew she needed absolute, undeniable proof before she unleashed a revelation that would shatter three of the most powerful families in Los Angeles. With her heart pounding against her ribs, Katie carefully secured the necklace in an evidence bag, treating it as the most precious artifact on Earth. But the necklace alone was not enough. She needed biological certainty. She needed a DNA test. Operating with the stealth and precision of a seasoned investigator, Katie covertly gathered the necessary materials. She scoured the beach house for anything Elektra might have left behind in her hasty, furious exit. A hairbrush tucked away in a bathroom drawer provided the golden ticket. Several long, distinct strands of Elektra's hair, complete with the vital root follicles needed for a conclusive genetic profile. Katie carefully collected the samples, her hands shaking not from fear, but from the overwhelming magnitude of what she was about to uncover. She bypassed the standard, easily compromised medical channels in Los Angeles, opting instead to send the samples to a highly secure, independent, out-of-state laboratory, ensuring that the Forrester family's vast wealth and influence could not intercept or alter the results. The waiting period that followed was an agonizing, psychological torture for Katie. Every passing second felt like an eternity. She had to maintain her composure, attending meetings at Logan Creations, interacting with Bill, and trying to support a deeply depressed Will, all while harboring a secret that was slowly consuming her from the inside out. She looked at Will, her beloved son, completely oblivious to the fact that the woman he was mourning, the woman he had loved with every fiber of his being, might actually be his own flesh and blood. The sickening dread of that possibility gnawed at Katie's soul, threatening to trigger the physical fragility of her transplanted heart. She prayed for strength, praying that her suspicions were wrong, yet simultaneously yearning for the miracle of a daughter returned from the dead. When the notification finally arrived on Katie's secure server, time stood completely still. She locked herself in her private office, the heavy silence of the room amplifying the deafening roar of her own heartbeat. With trembling fingers, she clicked open the encrypted file. Her eyes scanned past the complex medical jargon, searching desperately for the final conclusion. And there it was, printed in stark, undeniable black and white, probability of maternity, 99.99%. A perfect, indisputable genetic match. Elektra Forrester was not a Forrester by blood. She was a Logan. She was Katie's biological daughter. The immediate aftermath of the revelation was a chaotic storm of conflicting emotions. A profound, overwhelming wave of maternal love washed over Katie as she realized her baby girl was alive, beautiful, and vibrant. But that beautiful miracle was instantly eclipsed by a horror so dark, so unimaginable, that it brought Katie to her knees. Elektra was her daughter, Will was her son, and 4 months Will and Elektra had been engaged in a deeply passionate, romantic relationship. They had shared intimate moments, they had declared their undying love for one another, and they had shared a bed in the very beach house where Katie had found the necklace. The sickening realization that her son and daughter were romantically involved, that they had unknowingly crossed the ultimate, taboo boundary of shared blood was a psychological trauma of apocalyptic proportions. Katie gasped for air, the sheer horror of the incestuous near-miss threatening to suffocate her. The universe, in its twisted, cruel irony, had torn Will and Elektra apart through a violent family feud just before their relationship could progress any further into irreversible territory. The fights, the corporate secrets, the punch thrown at Eric Forrester, all of the chaos that had seemingly destroyed Will's life had actually been a miraculous, divine intervention, saving the half-siblings from a tragedy that would have destroyed their psyches forever. But the emotional damage had already been done. They had loved each other romantically. How could they ever recover from the psychological devastation of learning that their passionate romance was actually a twisted, incestuous nightmare? As the initial shock began to subside, a new, far more dangerous emotion began to take root in Katie's soul. Absolute, unadulterated fury. If Elektra was her biological daughter, how did she end up being raised as a Forrester? The pieces of the sinister puzzle rapidly fell into place. The hospital where Katie had given birth was heavily funded by Forrester Creations. The doctors, the nurses, the entire medical staff were on the Forrester payroll. The supposed death of her infant, the swift removal of the body, the closed casket memorial, it was all a meticulously orchestrated, monstrous lie. The Forresters had not just hidden a secret, they had stolen her child. Katie's mind raced through the list of potential culprits. Was it Eric Forrester, the esteemed patriarch, who orchestrated the kidnapping to punish the Logans or to secure a new heir for his empire? Was it Ridge, acting out of some twisted sense of vengeance during one of the many bitter wars between their families? Whoever was responsible, the Forresters had played God with Katie's life. They had watched her grieve. They had watched her suffer through years of agonizing heartbreak, all while secretly raising her daughter behind the heavily guarded gates of the Forrester mansion. They had robbed Katie of a lifetime of memories, of first steps, of school dances, of the fundamental right to be a mother to her own child. The feud between the Logans and the Forresters has spanned decades, fueled by stolen designs, stolen husbands, and bitter corporate rivalries. But this was an atrocity that transcended any boardroom battle or romantic triangle. This was the theft of human life. This was a crime of such profound cruelty that it demanded a reckoning of biblical proportions. Katie realized that the Forrester family's arrogance had finally reached a fatal limit. They believed they were untouchable, that their wealth and legacy shielded them from the consequences of their monstrous actions. But they had never faced the wrath of a mother who had her child stolen from her arms. Katie knew she could not carry this burden alone. The impending explosion required the ruthless, calculating power of the Spencer Empire. When Katie finally breaks this horrifying news to Bill Spencer, the fallout will be catastrophic. Dollar Bill, a man known for his merciless business tactics and fierce protection of his family, will undoubtedly unleash a wave of destruction upon Forrester Creations that will leave the company in absolute ruins. The realization that the Forresters stole his wife's baby and inadvertently set his son, Will, on a path toward an incestuous romance will awaken a dormant, terrifying rage within Bill. He will not rest until every single Forrester involved in the conspiracy is stripped of their wealth, their freedom, and their legacy. The Spencer sword will fall with a vengeance never before seen in Los Angeles. But amidst the impending corporate warfare and the quest for vengeance, the most devastating casualties will be the children caught in the crossfire. Elektra's entire identity is about to be violently ripped away from her. The family she revered, the grandfather she defended, the legacy she proudly represented, it is all a grotesque lie built on the foundation of a kidnapped infant. How will Elektra, a young woman already struggling with the emotional fallout of her breakup with Will, handle the psychological shattering of learning that her beloved Forrester family are actually her captors? How will she process the horrifying truth that the man she loved, the man she shared her most intimate secrets with, is her biological half-brother? The identity crisis will be profound, potentially triggering a severe mental health breakdown that will require years of intensive therapy to overcome. And then there is Will Spencer. Will is already drowning in a sea of depression, guilt, and isolation following the violent end of his relationship. He is currently being targeted by Melissa Dillon, a woman manipulating his vulnerable state for her own gain. When Will learns the truth that the woman he is mourning is his sister, and that his profound romantic grief is actually a twisted, incestuous tragedy, his psychological state will shatter into a million irreparable pieces. The guilt, the disgust, and the sheer trauma of the revelation will push Will to the absolute brink. Katie knows that saving her son from this psychological abyss will be the hardest battle she has ever fought. As Katie Logan Spencer sits in her office, clutching the DNA results that have rewritten the history of her life, the stage is set for the most explosive, devastating confrontation in the history of the bold and the beautiful. The secrets have been unearthed, the lies have been exposed, and the battle lines have been drawn in blood. The Forresters are about to face a reckoning that will tear their dynasty apart, and the Logans and Spencers will stop at nothing to reclaim their stolen daughter and exact a merciless, unforgivable revenge.